So, who is the most powerful woman in the world? Yeah, nice. But I'm going to hope we all answer the Blessed Mother. I hope we do that. And if you disagree, then get a back issue of National Geographic from about a year ago, where the Blessed Mother was the cover story. And the Blessed Mother was the cover story with the question, how did the Blessed Virgin Mary become the most powerful woman in the world? So I'm going to guess if we're up at 8 o'clock on New Year's Day, we would agree that Mary is the most powerful woman in the world, certainly in our lives. And certainly National Geographic correctly thinks so. And if we really look at that, we can maybe question, well, why? How is Mary the most powerful woman in the world? And we're given the answer very clearly in the Christmas story we hear again in the Gospel. We are back at the manger. And what is it that what do we hear? And one of those images we hear so often about the Blessed Mother, her heart. She treasured everything in her heart. She pondered everything in her heart. She wondered in her heart what all of these things meant. So it's really the heart of Mary, Immaculate Heart of Mary, title we have for our Blessed Mother. It's that heart of Mary that really has led her to be, enabled her to be, gave her to be the title, if you will, the most powerful woman in the world. And maybe this New Year's Day we just kind of question, where we are in our own heart. We like to focus on the heart. I know the chocolate hearts are already out for sale. I went to the stores to look. They're there. So Valentine's Day is next up and coming, and the chocolate hearts are there. We focus on the heart as that place to love. We can look to the Wizard of Oz. We have Tin Man. He wanted a heart. Hopefully we're not Tin Man. But nonetheless, some maybe are in search of that heart. There was an old song, I didn't ask Nancy to play it. It wasn't appropriate for Mass, but wasn't there a song about a lonely heart? Song about a lonely heart. Many of us will remember that one. Hopefully we're not a lonely heart either. We don't want to be a cold heart. We're pretty cold today in Western New York, but we don't want to have a cold heart. We want to have what? A warm heart, correct? A generous heart, a loving heart, a tender heart. What is our heart like as we focus on this brand new year and we focus on Mary, who treasured, pondered all these things, the meaning in her heart? In the Old Testament, the first reading, book of Numbers, we don't really focus so often on the Old Testament, and maybe as much as we should. We're given in that brief reading today a threefold blessing. It's really a beautiful blessing. I will not ask if you made a New Year's resolution. I made a couple of the ones that I do every year and fully intend to break them like normal. But nonetheless, if you haven't made a real New Year's resolution yet, I think we can glean one from this threefold blessing in the first reading today. What is that we hear? The first blessing, may the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord bless and keep you. What does it mean to keep? Well, if you look, to Google will tell us it means to have or retain possession of. So to keep means to retain possession or to have possession. Also, it states to continue or cause to continue in a specified condition. That one's a little more complicated, 8 o'clock in the morning. To continue or cause to continue in a specified condition. What does it really mean to keep? What is it we can resolve to do this new year? Well, it means to stay close to God and to stay close to one another. Really to keep, in the spirit of this particular blessing, means keep close to God and keep close to one another. The old question, am I my brother's keeper? And the answer is yes, we are. We desire to really keep one another close, we are our brother's keeper. We have to have that care and commitment to one another. One of our retired priests, I suppose he's made the next step in life. He retired and went to a condo where he lived for about 15 years in his retirement, and now he's made the step to one of these graduated living places. He's realizing time is marching forward and he's doing it all on his own. And I used to visit him over at his condo as a building in the city, high rise. And I often, when I would get off the elevator, I would find him leaving bags on people's doorknobs on his floor. And he loves to cook. And I was assigned with him at one time. It was a good match because I love to eat. And he would cook at great volume, and he would put little care containers on the young single people's doors who were working, and he would put little care containers on the elderly people who really probably couldn't prepare a proper meal for themselves any longer. What does it mean to keep? We look after one another. May we resolve to do that. Beautiful example of really caring for other, being neighbor's keeper. The second part of that blessing, what do we hear? May the Lord let his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Well, what does it mean to be gracious? It's an important word. Back to Google. The first definition of Google is to be courteous and kind. I don't like that definition. The second definition on Google is this: showing divine grace. I'm impressed. Google still included it. Showing divine grace. To be gracious means to show divine grace. Well, that's a beautiful resolution for the new year as we look to Mary, huh? Shown divine grace. To be gracious people. To allow the face of God to shine through you. And to recognize the face of God shining upon you in and through others. Graciousness. Very often today, especially, when people are trying to convince me of something, they'll say, well, I am a nice person. I say, well, I'm sure you are. But there's a difference between being nice and being gracious. Gracious means really showing divine grace. All of what we say and do to reflect, to shine God upon others in this world. This year, be gracious. Last week we celebrated a funeral, someone many of you knew so well, Rose Holscher, wonderful longtime parishioner of St. Greg's. She had a great devotion to Mary. She restarted the traveling statue of Mary. And every Saturday for a couple decades probably, took it upon herself to deliver the statue to someone's home where it's at for a week of prayer. I remember going to Rose's house for dinner, and after dinner, what is it that she called myself and all of the family to do? To pray the rosary. Isn't that a beautiful custom? As soon as dinner is done, we sat in the living room around the statue of our Blessed Mother, and we prayed the rosary. And one of the most wonderful things stated about her in her eulogy was, when you were in Rose's presence, you had her undivided attention. She did not look at who else was coming into the room. Many of us know people like that. When you're at a social gathering, very often, it's very nice to see you. Is somebody else out there that I need to talk to, That was never Rose. Rose, you had her undivided attention, and she wanted to know exactly what was going on in your life and in your world. It means to be gracious, to allow the light of Christ, the light of God, to shine upon others. The third May the Lord look upon you, and may you find peace. The Lord look upon you, and may you find peace. What is the one thing we really need in the world? Peace. And those of us who are here, the majority are my age or older, short of a couple sitting up here, but they're all younger than me up here. And, what did we used to call this day? The World Day of Prayer for Peace, huh? That was the title of this solemnity years ago, World Day of Prayer for Peace. The beautiful song, Let There Be Peace on Earth, We need to find peace. But isn't there a lot of restlessness, huh? A lot of restlessness. And restlessness not only in the world among nations, there's that too. Restlessness not only among different religious sects, there's that too. But isn't there a lot of restlessness in people's hearts? A restless heart. So often people today are like that first individual I described at the party. They're looking for what else is about to come. As soon as I get the house, well, what's my next house going to be like, As soon as I get the job, well, what's my next job going to be like? As soon as I meet some individual, who's the next one I'm going to meet? Huh? A restlessness. And what we're really called to is peace. If we don't have a peace in our heart, we'll never really experience the gift of Christmas and the gift of peace. We really need to really see to be satisfied with all of who we are and what we have every moment of life. And if we do so, then we will genuinely be at peace. Who is the most powerful woman in the world? The Blessed Mother Mary, who I think lived this threefold blessing from the book of Numbers. Certainly a woman who treasured everything in her heart. She kept them there. She was certainly gracious, and certainly was a woman of great peace. This new year, may we resolve to do the same, and in so doing, become even more powerful.